Guys, how you doing?
Feeling good, man. Missing the season already.
Premier League team of the season. So I reckon we'll see that most of our team of the season between the three of us will be quite consistent. I think there's a few like non-negotiable names there, but we'll see how it goes and argue the case if you like and try and come up with a Football Diary podcast team of the season unified from the three of us. How's that sound?
Yeah, look.
I'm going to start first. I'm going to go with Alisson.
Okay.
What about you guys?
I've gone for Alisson, but it was a toss-up between him and Mendy for me.
I've disagreed with both of you. I've gone for David De Gea. I think in the season that Man United have just had, the fact that you ended up with a 0 goal difference, or it might have been 1 in the end, is completely down to De Gea. It should have been minus 50. I think he had an outstanding season.
Yeah, it's a fair shout, to be honest. I mean, Alisson is the standout one because of the kind of season that he's had with Liverpool. I think clean sheet-wise, him and Ederson finished on the same. So you could argue the case for either. I'd say Ederson was probably the least busy keeper of the two. So that's why I've gone with Alisson.
I think a damning thing. I think De Gea was second in the league for shot stopping rating, I think.
Think about who was better protected. Was Alisson better protected or De Gea? I think De Gea has actually had a fantastic season. He's been United's player of the season by some distance, really. So that was the first name on my team sheet almost. I knew I was going to go for De Gea first. But I do understand why you'd pick Alisson.
I've gone for a back four with a defence. I don't know about you guys. I feel like that's easier to pick with full backs and wing backs. So I've gone Alexander-Arnold on the right, Cancelo on the left, and the centre backs. There was a few combinations I went through before I settled on Rudiger and Laporte. Now I was gonna potentially put maybe Van Dijk for maybe Ruben Dias instead of Laporte, but that's my back four. Myles, how about you?
Do you know what's really funny? I imagined that we were all going to have pretty much the same back four, but the one choice that I'd picked that I thought everyone might disagree with was Rudiger, because I went with Rudiger too. But the fullbacks, I can't imagine anyone's going to have anything different in any of their teams this season. It's got to be Trent and Cancelo, really. I think you can't argue with Trent's numbers this season. The assists he's put on have been absolutely ridiculous, really. So I've gone for Trent, Van Dijk, Rudiger and Cancelo. I just think Van Dijk, we saw what Liverpool were missing last season with his presence back in the team this year. And this ridiculous stat about no player ever beating him on a take on. He's so commanding. I think Liverpool have a lot to thank in him really this season.
Dave, do you want to tell us your back four then, mate? What do you reckon? Much difference?
Reece James at right back.
Who missed most of the season injured, right?
He played 26 games, I think, in the Premier League. They missed 12 games, but in those games that he did play, I think he scored 5 goals and commanded 8 assists as well. Like the overall impact he has on that Chelsea team, and the input he has in their attacking play, I think it just goes to show how much he's come on as a player. And I think he'll be competing for that right back spot in that England team. It wouldn't surprise me. So I can understand why he went for Trent, but I wanted to be a little bit rogue and go for an alternative choice. I've got Van Dijk and I've got Thiago Silva, who's had a really good season.
Not bad.
I thought about Silva as well, to be fair.
I think one thing you've got to say is, even in the big games, Chelsea, one thing they have done is keep it tight, and they've barely conceded any goals. So you've got to give a lot of credit, really, I think, to majority of their centre back pairings that have played this season. And then obviously Cancelo is obviously the overwhelming favourite at left back.
I think the interesting choice is Reece James, actually, Dave, because you forget what kind of start he had to the season.
Yeah.
And Chelsea, actually.
Well, the thing is with him, I always go Reece James over Trent Alexander-Arnold, but this season, I think you say James played 26 games. Well, Trent played 32. So that's only 6 more, but he got 12 assists.
4 of those were substitute appearances as well, so it's 22 games.
It's fantastic. I love Reece James, but you can't go with anyone but Trent this season, even if you're a Man United fan, Dave.
So moving on to midfield, I've gone for 3 in the middle and 3 up front as well. So my midfield 3 is Jared Bowen, Kevin De Bruyne, and Bernardo Silva.
Jared Bowen in midfield?
I think so, yeah. Well, to be honest, I've toyed with Declan Rice. But I've got 3 very offensive midfielders there. I'm quite aware of that. They could all play very much further forward. But I was trying to shoehorn him into a team that had very good attackers as well. So I did. And he's in midfield, and that's the way it is. But yeah, special mention to Declan Rice. Probably Rodri as well. I think Rodri would have deserved a place too. But Myles, what's your take on the middle?
So there was 2 places in my team that I really struggled to decide. One was one of the centre-backs, and I went with Rudiger. And then the other was who I was going to have at the base of my midfield, because I've actually played 3 midfielders, Mike, unlike some. And I did go with Declan Rice with Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne in front. I think Bernardo Silva started the season in such amazing form, and then De Bruyne kind of picked up the second half of the season. So between them, they were absolutely imperious. I couldn't work a way of getting Rodri in. He was another one I thought of. Conor Gallagher was my other omission really from the midfield that I struggled to leave out. I think he's got to have some credit, but yeah, I went with Rice, who I think genuinely might be the best midfielder in his position right now in our league anyway. And then Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne are obviously a bit more attacking.
I've got a surprise inclusion. You're
Fred.
No. So I've gone for Rodri. He's obviously offered a lot going forward as well. Scored some important goals. De Bruyne and Kovacic.
Okay.
Whenever I've watched Chelsea, especially in the big games this season, they've not been overpowered in central midfield. If not, the games that they've played, especially the two finals against Liverpool, really been decided on fine margins. We already spoke. One of the reasons for that is how strong they are in midfield. And Kovacic, he's actually surprised me in how well he has actually performed. Probably doesn't get quite enough praise as what he should do, really.
Up front, yeah, I've got a front three, as I think we all have by the sound of it. I've gone for Salah, Mane, and Son. You've got to have Son, haven't you? And again, I've toyed with maybe Harry Kane, but then looking at his start to the season, it was quite slow. Probably Ronaldo's got a shout. He's pretty much carried United. But that's my front three, yeah. Salah, Mane, and Son.
I find it hilarious that I'm the one that's not the United fan, but I've got two United players in my team this season somehow. I went with Salah, Son, and Ronaldo down the middle because I also thought that would make a really good front three as well. They naturally fall in line together. But I think with Ronaldo's numbers and the fact that he came back to the Premier League, he's 37, managed 18 goals in that terrible Man United team. That deserves some recognition, really. I think as far as pure centre forwards, central strikers go, no one was as good as him in the league this season.
Yeah, that's a brilliant shout, to be fair. I think there's not much variation from a certain sort of five attackers, really, because it's been a strange season for striking numbers, hasn't it? I mean, the top scorer has got, 23 goals, was it, between them? Each, sorry. So it's not many goals actually going in from one individual person like there normally is. So it has to be a certain handful of players. But Dave, have you got any curveballs for us in your front three?
Not really. I went for Bowen on the right, Salah and Son. I agree with Myles. I think Ronaldo, considering some of the players that they play with this season, performances United have put in, he's done so well to do what he can and get the goals that he has done. But there was just that patch in the middle of the season where he kind of went on a little bit of a dry patch and didn't score many goals for a while. It's just because United were doing so terribly. It wasn't getting served. It's crazy to think what he could have done if he'd have had a competent team around him. And if he'd gone to Man City, then I dread to think how many goals he would have scored in that team this season. I wanted to pick Bowen because of just how improved he is as a player. I think coming through at Hull as in the championship, he was obviously a prodigious talent, and he's stepped up and he's been able to make his mark in the Premier League. And I'm really happy that he's got into this England squad, and hopefully he's given a chance and he's able to make his mark. Because I wouldn't mind him in a United team really, and just the way some of our players are playing. But I feel as though the energy that he brings and just the quality, we've seen him score important goals this season as well, and kind of drag him and Rice have really dragged West Ham over the line in a lot of games.
It would have been interesting to do a team of players outside the top six, because there was a lot of players actually that would have had really impressive seasons, and also a couple of players that came into the league in January that, had they been there full season, would Kulusevski or Bruno Guimaraes have got into the side, because they were fantastic in the second half of the season.
Luis Diaz as well.
Luis Diaz is another one that I'm scared to watch him next season. Coutinho, maybe. No, just me.
Yeah, fair shout.
No, it's not. No, he was brilliant, but not that good. We'll see next year. But Eriksen as well, the difference Eriksen made at Brentford, maybe he could have been in this as well. But that the top sides are always going to dominate it, really, aren't they?
So I'm trying to figure out a combined 11 for the three of us. So I think in terms of impact on the team, for goalkeeper, Liverpool would have carried on okay without Alisson. I do think that. Whereas United would have been disastrous without De Gea. So I think De Gea's got to be in there as goalkeeper between us. As United fans as well, I don't think we can argue with that. So David De Gea, goalkeeper of the season, he gets in the team. On the right, I think two of us said Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think we unanimously said João Cancelo, didn't we? So he's on the left. In terms of centre-back then, did you two both say Virgil van Dijk?
Yeah, I did.
So I think it's Virgil and maybe Rudiger. Is that right? Would be a combined centre-back pairing between the three of us. So that's not a bad back four, actually, combined, is it? Midfield three, it looks like it's a Man City trio. So I might break that up and take Rodri out of the picture and go De Bruyne, Bernardo, and Rice. That sound fair?
Sounds good to me.
That's yours entirely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Rice was close for me, and I sort of shoehorned Bowen in, but he's not a midfielder, really. He's not a centre mid. So, yeah, that three sounds pretty good. And then up front, we've all said Salah.
It'd be mad if one of us didn't say Salah, let's be honest.
I know. Well, same with Son. Son kind of like he has to be on the team sheet. But spearheading that, I think I'm going to go with Cristiano Ronaldo as well, just to mix it up. Because we've all had, a different third forward player. But in terms of would that player have made a difference to the team if he wasn't there? Yeah. Gosh, where would United be without Cristiano Ronaldo this season and David De Gea? So in terms of impact, I've gone for probably Cristiano Ronaldo as a combined Football Diary podcast. 11 of the season. That's pretty strong, I think, guys. That's pretty good.
Otherwise known as exactly the 11 that I picked.
There we go.
Yes.
Not bad, man. Not bad.
I feel like that means I've just got the most convincing arguments, or you just want to shut me up most.
No, in the interest of balance as well, I think it could be a lot dominated by City players if we let it, or Liverpool players. So I think in the interest of keeping it diverse, let's go with that. And as United fans, again, I can't really take away Ronaldo and De Gea's impact on our season. So yeah, sounds good. Who have you got managing the team, Myles?
This one I really struggled with. So Klopp has won manager of the season, which I find a little bit bizarre. If you look at the club season as a whole, there's no argument it's Jurgen Klopp. But if we're talking purely Premier League manager of the season, how do you pick the manager that came in second? I just think it's not like Liverpool were massive underdogs and rose through the ranks to finish second.
I would pick a manager who has surpassed expectations for his role and for his club.
I got stuck between two, and I think one of them you'll both go, what? But bear with me. I think it's got to be either Thomas Frank. I think he had a fantastic time with Brentford. That isn't the one I thought you'd be surprised at, so that worries me. I think he's been brilliant. For Brentford to come up and finish 13th in their first season, and the kind of budget they have, the impact that people expected that team to have. They didn't spend much money at all, really. Then he managed to bring Christian Eriksen in because of his connections, and that just gelled fantastically. They played good football. They upset some teams. I really enjoyed watching Brentford. So I thought about Thomas Frank and Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
Because I will say the impact he's had at Newcastle is ridiculous. I think if you look at where Newcastle were before he came in, of course they had the cash injection as well. But actually, if you look in January, they didn't spend that much money. Steve Bruce was given a decent amount of money. He bought Joel Linton for 40 million. And then it was Eddie Howe that turned him into a good player. So I think his impact can't be underestimated. But I'm going to go with Frank purely because Eddie Howe refuses to talk about Saudi Arabia. And I think he comes across really badly in those cases. So I'm going to go with Thomas Frank.
I see that. I don't think we're going to agree on a manager of the season, to be fair. So I'm happy to sort of share this as a debate. But definitely feeling the case for Eddie Howe, but also the same reasons against him as well. I would shout Patrick Vieira in there as well.
Yeah, that was a season.
And Antonio Conte, although it's only been a half season, I think he's had a real massive impact on Spurs' season. Without him, they would definitely not be in the Champions League. So out of those two, I'm probably going to go Patrick Vieira. Really impressed me. I didn't think he had the man management or the tactical experience to be able to turn this pretty haphazard Crystal Palace side into an actual team of really exciting young players, and he has. So credit to him. So for me, it's Vieira. So we've got two kind of curveball managers of the season. Dave, are you sticking with that theme?
Well, I won't say Myles was a curveball because I was going to say Thomas Frank as well.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree with both of your opinions really, and the managers mentioned, and likes of Vieira. One you've not mentioned yet is David Moyes. How well he's done at West Ham and how far he's taken him in Europe. But this last couple of years, obviously, they've been a lot easier on the eye. I would probably say he'd be up there. He'd probably be my choice if I wasn't going to go to Thomas Franks, just because how improved West Ham are.
I think he's definitely had a massive impact on their season, and a few surprises, and he's definitely one of them. But manager of this team sounds like it's Thomas Frank, based on the democracy of 2 people voting for him. Player of the season, then probably captain of this particular team as well. I don't know. It has to be Kevin De Bruyne for me. And I know you say he's only sort of had a smaller portion of the season as opposed to consistency throughout. But I just think the level he's playing at now is on another planet. He is definitely, if not the best, then one of the best midfielders in the world at the moment. So, yeah, for me, he's the star of the Premier League. He's one of these players who you could put in any team in the world. And his impact on that City team is probably the few players that's almost undroppable for me for City. So, yeah, Kevin De Bruyne. Anyone think any differently?
No, I went De Bruyne as well. I think it's hard because there are 3 players really that I would have put up for it. And they would have been De Bruyne, Salah, and Bernardo Silva, but they were all based on periods. Even Salah, as good as he has been, after that, we talked about it last week, really. After AFCON, he did start to slow down and things. Whereas De Bruyne started a bit slower and then picked up and really carried City over the line. You think about the 4 goals he scored against Wolves and just how much he took over that team. And he's phenomenal. There isn't a player better at launching a counter-attack, or there isn't a player better at being able to find that last decisive pass in the league. And he's just so incredible to watch. He's not got a weak foot. He's got an incredible footballing brain. Easily De Bruyne for me in the end, I think.
Dave, any different to that?
No. I agree what you're saying there, Myles. And I think as well, what's been difficult, I think my decisions choosing my team was because Man City had so many players who kind of played not bit part roles, but they've kind of shared the games between them. So that's why I didn't really want to put Bernardo Silva in there, because of how even though he's been as good as he has been, likes of Foden as well, he's kind of played, not played others. You've got to say he's been so good. He's the best passer and crosser of a ball I've seen since David Beckham. And his passes, just how his timing and the projection he gets on his passes are always like inch perfect. Yeah, it's frustrating to see as an opposition fan. So
no, he's one of those players I think you just have to sit up and respect, isn't it? Yeah. Because the way he was, I mean, you've seen some pundits famously, I think it was Paul Merson on Soccer Saturday was saying, what a waste of money De Bruyne is when he signed him from Wolfsburg. And I think the fee at the time was questioned. And, he was a failure at Chelsea. He's not going to make it. That just seems insane now. And that we played against that Sky Sports panel forever for being one of the worst judgment calls we've ever seen. But yeah, Kevin De Bruyne is the star of this team. And I think he will be for the Premier League for a decade. Hopefully that'd be worth seeing. Because if he ever moved abroad from the Premier League, would be ruin his loss, because he's one of them players you'd pay to watch, isn't he?
Definitely.
Awesome. So team settled, manager settled, even the captain and the star player has been settled. So that's the Football Diary podcast team, manager and player of the season all wrapped up.